Are we recording?
We are recording.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. I can't believe is this the last? We got one more Thursday of January, don't we? Yeah, one. Crazy that we will be 1/12 of the year already. It's good to see you all. And let me bring up the agenda and let's get right on into it with wins of the week with Jim. And then we've got Amy's got some info on the G2 launch of SaaS alerts. We got some stuff from the product team, and then I got the week in threat. So Jim, let's kick it off with some wins.
Yeah, let's. Who's got some?
Let's see. Let's go down here. We're gonna have to start calling on people.
I'll share, if I may.
Please, yeah, of course.
So SaaS Alerts has been kicking back for us a whole bunch of stuff around a customer outside the US who bought a batch of 15 used laptops because they're growing so quickly. They thought that would save them money. And all these alerts started coming in. And I love the fact that MSA and Rocket Cyber work together and bring it all to us. So I'm grateful.
Andy, what happened with the 15 used laptops, though? Can you kind of give us?
Well, they all came preloaded with ransomware.
Oh,
and
nice.
So yeah. So it started with level 2 stuff, and so when we had to instruct them on their internal IT didn't have an idea of how to properly wipe them. So it's just it's an experience, I should say.
Did they buy these used?
Yeah, exactly, because it saves them money.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because hardware is so expensive these days, Chip.
Yeah, exactly. They went to the John McAfee, RIP store and bought the laptops.
Yeah,
Maybe there was some Tor site they got them off of, or
maybe it's a new option on all the big manufacturers you select with ransomware or malware.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Enrique. The new way to get supply chain attacks going.
So, Andy, what was the reaction of your customer when you flagged all of these?
well, we kept, because we first found it on the two that came online pretty quickly, and we suggested strongly, since they were used, that we even sent instructions on how to wipe them properly, because they can't just reinstall Windows, right? And this morning I still got another one. So they've only been addressing those that it gets triggered on, instead of wiping the entire batch.
Chip, you got to wonder about the whole firmware supply chains and things like that. I mean, what a great gray market, another way to get ransomware out there now.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I still I want to dig into this, Andy. So you sent to one of your customers. Do they have internal IT?
They do.
Oh, they do. Okay, so they're capable.
That's why they acquired it, right? Well,
of
no,
dropping the disk partition, creating a brand new one, and starting from scratch.
We actually wrote up the instructions on how to do this, because that's not the skill set that they have currently.
Did you ask them if this was a pen testing exercise, Andy? So maybe let them.
No, that would have been really nice, right? But no, that's just an example. And I have another situation that kind of falls outside of this. We talked about this a week ago, where a customer, or going to be a customer at this point, had credit card bank deposits routed to a different account. And the questions that need to be asked today are: do you have a separate payroll account? Are you able to make sure that one of your employees isn't washing a check so that they can do something like this? There's so many dimensions to how this is expanding, where one can cause hardship, because basically they said, hey, look, he went on vacation, and they submitted a change of bank account, and they provided a canceled check, and they made it happen because they had access to his email.
Jeez.
So that's a form of business email compromise that we haven't even talked about yet.
So can you walk through that one more time, Andy?
Sure. Business owner, he accepts credit cards. Credit card processor received on or about, let's say, December 11th. a request to change where the credit card deposit would go. In other words, when they process credit cards, it went someplace else.
So just quick. So someone spearfished, got in his account and now is instructing the merchant service to change it.
Correct. Second, merchant service says back to them, it's the right email address. You're doing great. We need to get this in writing with a canceled check of where it's going to go, and we'll make the change. And the owner's on vacation during this time.
But so my question though is that seems like a really foul process. That there should be a phone call to the business owner.
Believe me, the process was defined long ago. I absolutely agree with you. Today, there should be more validation other than, is this the correct email? And are they sending does it look right? So that was issue one. So that's being dealt with. And then he's gone for 2 weeks on vacation and doesn't notice that the funds aren't going to his one business bank account. He doesn't have separate bank accounts. I mean, there's a whole bunch of business issues around this as well, right? Not to mention that it's a free email account, not a paid one.
Oh,
so there's no way to track this, right?
His was a free email account, correct?
Yeah, like at outlook.com.
Yeah. And did they send like a PDF image of a canceled check that they just manufactured using?
They used a
Adobe.
JPEG, I think. And in other words, they made it look legit.
So they just manufactured it up and made it look legit.
But Jim, I mean, so Chip, like what merchant service doesn't do some type of multi-factor of phone call verification? That's crazy.
I want you to think about this, Andrew. It's not, these are all outsourced by banks, right? And so that comes up. It could be a family business. It could be a business that hasn't reviewed this process internally, right? In a while.
Yeah, but Andy, you're saying this is his credit card processor, right? Like a Stripe or a Square?
Yeah.
So which one was it? Like, can we out him, please?
Credit card processors aren't just Stripe and Square. It is anybody who is an intermediary, right?
Yep.
Fair. We're just.
So it wasn't one of the big ones, is what you're saying.
No, exactly. And what is coming out of this is that I get to work with this now processor to help them get all of their processes dialed in, as well as helping their customers become PCI compliant.
I was going to say, I'm sure they're doing well with their PCI compliance, Andy.
That's exactly why I'm expressing this as a quasi-win, even though this is unfortunate for that individual. In fact, I met with him when I was in Orlando. Imagine that. They went down for a show and I was there and I got a chance to talk to him and meet. So that was a positive win.
So can you help us with one more piece of the business logic here?
Sure.
What was the business motivation for this partner of yours to use kind of a low budget or an off-brand credit card processor? Why would they do that? Was there a super low rate that they were charged per transaction?
That's one. Absolutely, there's a super low rate. Second, this processor has been in business for 20, 25, 30, 35 years. So it's a family-run processing business.
But I mean, just think about the logic, Chip. This is the same guy that's got a free email account.
And one bank account, and the password's written on the bottom of their keyboard. I can just go down the list because I went through and did a vulnerability assessment and I started asking these other questions. And there's so much. This exists in the workplace today with small, mid-sized businesses.
Yep.
And purchases used laptops.
And that's not a small business. That's a brand new business that's just growing astronomically fast, right?
And Jim, like week after week, people are like, "Oh, what are the emerging threats, and what new tools do I got to get?" And again, talk to any of the IR firms, and it's 99 point carry the nines. It's always stupid hygiene stuff,
right?
And this is where I think we make a difference, because if we get in there and begin to just look at what they're doing and ask why, these are the foundation questions that aren't being asked today of the small, mid-sized business customer. And they have no real perception of how vulnerable they can be in any number of ways. And so, Andrew, this is what I'm hoping you kind of bring to fore in a couple of weeks, is that it's not just the geekiness of it. It is really looking at this at a more holistic level as well.
Yeah, like, well, again, based on which sessions you're going to be in,
Yeah.
like, it's an example, like, you'd be in one of Bo's sessions or John's sessions, and Chip and Jim know these guys well from Black Hills. They're going to talk, they're going to talk about the basics that's what they do for a living, right?
Yep.
They get in just with and by the way, one of the attacks we're going to talk about today when we get to my section is what they do day in and day out. We've talked about it before, but it's an emerging one.
So I guess really the point I'm raising here is that there's not enough education available to me as a business owner right now to kind of think about all these different avenues. And so that's why I'm on this call, and that's why I'm going to write a boom and continuing to look for sources of intelligence feed and best practices.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Andy.
Yep.
Yeah. So Josh, you'd see this all the time in the merge. I could imagine you would, seeing fraudulent stuff each week. Josh.
Yeah, you'd catch it. You'd catch it all week long, and you just had it was the due diligence of the authorization form, wet signatures, not electronic signatures. It had to be a wet signature, and you could decipher the difference between the two. If it was electronic, wouldn't pass. But yeah, it was the processor. Unfortunately, didn't do their dot the i's, cross the t's, which allowed this to go through. But every week you catch fraud accounts every week.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah.
Who else? Anyone else have something good? Corey, good to see you, bud. Any fun stuff happening there in Tennessee?
Nothing security related. I just
No.
been treading water at the moment with other projects. So I wish I had some cool things to share, but I don't have anything this week at the moment.
All right. No sweat. All right. Is Ben with us?
Ben is with us.
Every day.
Anything interesting that you guys saw this week?
Yeah, but I think we'll talk about it with Leron. He has a couple of things we kind of combined into some of the findings we had this week.
Oh, okay. So the IOC piece is with him. Is the kind okay.
Yeah, we kind of rolled it up into one.
All right, fair enough. We'll wait for it. All right, Amy, I'll let you talk a little bit about this stuff here.
So we recently launched, and by recently, I think Monday or Tuesday this week, launched a profile on G2. I'm sure most of you are familiar with G2. It's a software review site. You can go compare tools. What I would love for this group, if you have 5 minutes or so, I know y'all are very busy, but I'm going to post this link in the chat. It's very long so that we can track where everything comes from. If you could give us a review to help us seed some of this, it's how we are able to get to the top of the rankings and how we're able to get more visibility for the brand. The more positive reviews we have and the more frequently they're posted, the better. You'll get a $25 gift card in return from G2, and it sounds like you get to choose from a selection of local gift cards. So if you're out of the country, you don't have to worry about getting a Amazon gift card or something that only works in the US. Everything will be convertible and you'll be able to pick what you want.
Amy, is there one available for the Gasparilla store if I do one?
I don't think so.
It said local.
You can probably get a Visa one though and use that.
Okay. All right, very cool. Looks good, by the way. Good job setting it up, Amy.
Thanks.
By the way, Zach, you said there's an uptick in adversary in the middle. Are these ones where they're redirecting to a pseudo M365 login, or what are you seeing?
I haven't had a chance to follow up with the specific ones. I've just noticed that I've got the notifications set up to pretty much let me know whenever those rules are triggering. And just the last 2 days or so, we've definitely had an uptick in those events triggering.
Okay.
More to come on this, Andrew.
Okay. Very cool, Chip. You're seeing, I guess, a lot of it as well.
Yeah, Ben will be digging in here.
Okay.
Andrew, did you see Greg's comment as well?
Hold on. Greg, anyone else getting a lot of Starlink IP addresses? Starlink IP addresses. Interesting. Tell us about it, Greg. What are you seeing? That's an interesting one, Chip, especially with all the, outages and things, people using Starlink.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, we can, Greg.
Sorry, I was multitasking. Took me a minute to find the window. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had 2 or 3 clients that are having users triggered as outside the USA when they're using Starlink. Now, sometimes Entra reports it as domestic, but SAS Alerts reports it as either Canada or Mexico. And then other times Entra reports it external also. I've been submitting these to Kaseya and SAS Alerts support. I'm just curious. It just happened out of the blue in the last couple of weeks. And today we confirmed one of the users has been using Starlink for 2 years, but today was the first time that she got reported as her IP being outside and blocked. So it's been really annoying because we have to keep going in and making exceptions in both conditional access and whitelisting either the org or I guess we're actually just whitelisting the IP in the org. I was just curious if someone knows why anything has changed recently.
I'll offer a couple of theories.
These are all users within Arizona, in or outside the valley.
Yeah, I'll offer a couple of theories, Greg, and some other folks have touched on this. There's been a lot of activity with Starlink in the West Coast, particularly California, with them dropping lots of new service in. And as Starlink continues to add nodes and obviously add users, they're continuing to buy more blocks of IP addresses that they're acquiring from other people. And it takes, weeks to months for all that IP data to get properly updated by the various carriers through the ICANN system and then get back to the sources that we use. Now, if you keep reporting those into our support team, we update our local side databases on this. There's a verification process that we'll go through to make sure that we're updating correctly, and that may or may not include the guys calling you back and asking us how you can be definitively sure of what where this IP address is. But we will update that to alleviate it if we can validate that IP address has been rehomed geographically. We'll update that on our local side versus what we pull down from the feeds that we get.
Sure, understood. That's why I've been, as they come in, new ones, I've been resubmitting them.
Yep. Yeah, and I definitely encourage you to do that. Don't feel like you're being a pain in the ass. If you have a whole bunch of them, just keep piling them in because we need that information. It does take us a couple days to go through validation as well. Unfortunately, you would think that there'd be some kind of penalty for an ISP not reporting the changes in geolocation. But there really isn't that I'm aware of, and it's just kind of an honor system that they get around to.
No problem. Just one of those weird one-off things. I was just curious if anyone else had any sight what it could have triggered this.
So Starlink uses local relay stations scattered across, and also a thought could be if they're saturated because of the West Coast issues, they might reroute traffic to different base stations, which I would doubt they would go out of the country, but being so close to Mexico, something might be processed over to a different relay station on the ground.
That's true, Enrique, although that is changing. The latest generation of Starlink satellites that have gone up no longer require the ground relay stations to function.
Nice to know.
Yeah. I'm a Starlink user, guys, so I'm tuned into these comments like right away because My day-to-day is all Starlink from home.
Very good. All right. Leron, one of the things you had shared was the power filters. Is that going to be you or Amanda
That's Adam, actually.
or Adam? Okay.
We've been too quiet on the product front, so we're going to give you 3 things.
All right.
And my feelings are, Andrew, that you put my name there. It's like when you called Amy Michelle. Is this just your thing or what?
I try to keep people on their toes, Amanda.
Thanks, Bruce. All right. Well, I'm going to show you 2 different things today, and I'll try to do it quick so I leave enough space in the agenda for anyone else. Give me 1 minute because I don't know how to use a computer here. All right. I think I got it. All of you have probably been on this screen sometime in your life where you have gone to organizations, you've picked an org in your tenant, you've gone to whitelisting, and you've played with this screen. One of the things that we consistently hear from our partners is that the Microsoft data center data movement events that generate outside approved location, when in fact they probably shouldn't be, is very noisy. So we've been working on kind of a rethink of this entire filtering, or actually, sorry, whitelisting thing. And we de-scoped the big pie in the sky plan to hopefully help with the pain that exists today. And so this mock-up is something that is actively in development as of this morning, and it's adding a new section to our whitelisting. So today we have the ability to add countries, and we have the ability to add IP addresses. In the future, we will give you the ability to do ASNs and ASNs with location. So for instance, let's pretend you have a Starlink and it's saying that Starlink is showing up from Mexico and Canada. You could theoretically create a whitelist for Starlink and then say specifically what country, maybe even what city. So that might actually silence some of those alerts that you were just talking about, or events you were just talking about. But back to the original reason why we made it, it is for the Microsoft Data Center file level events. And so coming soon to a product near you will be this additional whitelist feature. So I wanted to kind of tease that first. So before I move on and show you the next version of this, I thought I'd stop and just ask questions. And well, I do love the hearts and the claps and all of the things, because the cool thing about this is that Leron actually drew this and I get to present it and get all the kudos. So thank you, Leron.
So let's look in chat, right? People want this as soon as possible because Adam and I have had a very good and natural tension between Adam wants to do what he's about to show you. And I've talked with Chip quite a long time about getting this, and we want to get this out the door as soon as possible. So what you're seeing here is V1 of this, and we'll be out the door as soon as possible. And what Adam is about to show will be the future of this.
All right. And in Wayne's World fashion, I think I need everybody like, I don't know if that's something that you guys are used to. No? Oh, all right. Well, I don't know if you're too young.
Enrique has a question.
Oh, good question. While you're adding fields on here, can we request fields like maybe a start and an end date?
Yes, that is planned in the future world.
Awesome.
And
thanks.
Obviously so. I see Andy's hand up.
Yeah, my question would be, if this is tracking IPs, what about if they have an optional to use a SASE? So we want to be able to support their home office where they are at, and if they're traveling in a SASE gateway, be able to have both of those covered.
Yeah. So your SASE gateway probably pops out on an ASN or has a certain range of IP addresses that are pretty consistent. you
So I
would
would be able to group these together is what I'm getting at, right?
a group of organizations who are on SASE or a group of IP addresses that the SASE uses?
No, let me just say, I wanted to define a SASE IP range, and I want to define a verified office IP range.
You can do
they
that
would
today,
operate
Andrew.
from.
Yeah, that's available
Andy.
today.
Great, sorry.
Yep.
I'm removed.
All right, so this is my baby, and you guys are welcome to call it ugly. That's what the whole point of this call is. So if my baby is ugly, please tell me. I'll walk you through kind of the vision that I've got for this and kind of standard product manager speak. We haven't built this yet. This is my dream. I might hand it to the dev team and they go, this is absolutely impossible and it's not going to be here until 2028 or something along those lines. But this is the direction that I'd like to head and would love to hear your feedback. So the first piece that I am trying to introduce with this is a global scope. So the idea of having to go to every single organization and put in the United States or whatever country there is over and over and over again just pains me for you all. So the first thing I want to do is introduce a global scope where at the level of your tenant, you can place in filters. So one of the other things to mention here is we will be renaming I can't even say it now, whitelisting to power filters. And so we will be able to add filters for each layer. So in this particular instance right now, I have a global scope, which would be your MSP. And I can see that I've got a United States country filter here, as well as a device confidence filter of 65%. So in this, if an event comes in and it's from the United States, it's not outside approved location. Now, let's say you're traveling and you're in a different country that is not United States, but because Unify has identified that particular event as occurring from a known device with at least a 65% confidence rating, that also would not be an outside approved location. So going up from there, you have the organization scope. So let's pick one of your clients. And so now one of your clients here, you can see we are adding on top of the scope as we go. So in this particular one, this is that Microsoft Data Center solution. So I'm now going to create a filter that says anything coming from the Microsoft ASN that is showing as Toronto, Ontario, and Canada, then that also is considered to be not outside of an approved location. We have the ability then to move down to the next level. And now let's add for the account scope. So now we can see that as we're moving through, we now have John here who must work from Germany or spend enough time in Germany that we're going to go ahead and add a filter for John as well. And then he's got this static IP because he VPNs in a lot. And so now that one is also considered to be not outside approved location. The other thing that's new with this is the inheritance toggle. So let's say that the Acme Toaster Company is not actually in the US. So we would not want that to apply. So if I toggle this here, this is indicating that the rules are not coming through or the filters are not coming through. And now you can see I'm only in the context or the only filter rules for Acme is, again, the ASN and this particular item for the user. I could also go further and say, hey, for the user, I don't even want to inherit the organization settings or the global settings. I'm making the user specifically. We can do all kinds of settings here. And then as you're doing this, you have the ability to add a filter at any level unless you have turned off a particular inheritance level, and then it is not available here anymore because it doesn't make sense. Along the lines of the question for Enrique, yes, the intent is to add time-based filters someday. But this is kind of the next iteration of whitelisting. So questions, comments, thoughts? You want to throw tomatoes at me? What do you have? Andy?
Yeah, I was asking, can we also create a category around work role? In other words, it might trigger, the rules may be different depending on their work role for an organization. I'm beginning to try to think of how this would apply across an organization, where some would be restricted to just US if they're in accounting or HR, but they might not be if they're in sales.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
fun.
So Andy, Zach asked your same question in a different way. And he asked, can we get you guys to incorporate groups, which would accomplish
Yep.
the same thing is what
Now
you're
then
looking
you
for.
roll it up one more level to a policy to be able to define that and templatize it. Now we're cooking with grease.
Yeah, I had mentioned to Leron this morning that I thought groups were an appropriate scope and maybe even application. Because, for instance, I may not want to do the ASN whitelisting for Microsoft for companies that are Google only. So there's still kind of playing with that, but I do like the direction you're going there. All right. I will stop sharing and give the floor to the remainder of the time there.
Hopefully you could put your dream in turbo mode.
I like turbo mode. Chip said I could have 10 new devs this month, so I think we'll get it done pretty soon.
No, I said you had to write 9 new AI agents as devs, and you could hire 1 dev to do it.
Well, there's that
It'll be
too.
done tomorrow.
We'll get you
There
10
was a
new
10 involved.
Adam, we'll get you 10 used laptops.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right. Leron, who do we want next?
Amanda, are you ready to present?
Since I don't have much of a voice, Ben's helping me out. Ben's presenting the next topic for me. Some of you might remember Ben demoed the contains logic for respond. It allows us to do wildcards in the filters. This is going to be imminently released as early as maybe tomorrow. So Ben's just going to do a refresher here.
Yes, definitely.
Pay attention, guys. This is the big one.
So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So basically what we discovered is, especially when you are, this is one thing actually that Zach asked for, I believe, was the ability to trigger an respond rule based off of like maybe a certain number of characters or possibly alert off of, you know, file extensions with any file name being possible to be selected. So what we'll go off of Zach's for now. I'm just going to do rule. And what we'll be able to do here, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, make sure I'm doing this right, is we'll be coming in here to description details, and we'll be able to say like inbox rule created, and then put a question mark, which would represent one single character, any character, and then has been created. Because a lot of threat actors, they still use the periods, they use the special characters, but they also will use like just random A through Z just to kind of throw that off. And so that's been something that's been hard for us to catch with respond. But not only that, but we can also add multiple, which means this will be like 2 characters. Or if we're looking for a certain file name, or if we're trying to monitor for, I think, what is it? Amanda, I believe miscellaneous is also a possibility too, isn't it?
Ben, it's in the drop down.
You mean which filters we can do the contains on?
Yeah.
Yes, miscellaneous we can do it.
Cool. Miscellaneous, if you guys didn't know, when you're working with SharePoint, is typically where the path will show up to the file. So if you wanted to monitor for a certain, like some people say, I want to be able to know if a particular folder, files that are in this particular folder are modified, then what we can do in here is, I'm just going to make this up. So we'll just do, let's do a path of www.sharepoint.com, and then we'll say anything that is under the HR and anything that's in there. We can also use an asterisk as well to represent pretty much the normal, what that would be a wildcard for pretty much any combination of anything. Or if a certain folder, you know, like finance or something. Is that kind of what you were thinking too, Amanda? I think that's pretty much what we thought.
Yes.
But sorry, man, I hate to make you talk. But yeah, so that's like I said, the biggest ask was a lot of times you'll see threat actors using mailbox rules with just like 2 characters, and without creating a description for every single possibility, that was hard for us to do. But with this, it'll be a reality. Another one that we thought of is one of the things that we monitor is the creation of certain when ransomware is triggered, it will actually use some of it will use certain extensions for their file names. So we wanted to be able to say, okay, if certain files are, let's say a file is created, let's say a file event is uploaded, and the file name contains something with like Locky, then just to be able to do something like this. And so if we do see files that are all of a sudden, we see a bunch of files being uploaded with this extension, or any number really of different extensions that the ransomware uses, we can trigger off of that. So it gives the kind of almost like a ransomware detection. And from then we can block the account so that it can't continue.
Ben, may I ask, does this mean that you're going to be scanning the SharePoint site for file names on a regular basis?
That happens sometimes in the back end with OneDrive, and so it's not that we're scanning. It's not that we're looking at an event that has already happened. It's that we're able to monitor the logs for one that is ongoing, that is active. So it would typically, what happens is, and we've seen this on our logs, is when a computer is ransomware, especially one that's running like the OneDrive with like the backup that's going to the documents. Yeah, all those files are uploaded. All of a sudden re-uploaded massive amounts, which is kind of what the file event trigger was for, is to detect a whole bunch of files being changed. But with this, you can be a little bit more granular. So maybe you don't care if somebody is modifying a whole bunch of files unless they contain certain extensions or are in certain paths. But the way our system was before, it ignored any sort of special characters. So you would be basically, our system would be looking for this, which isn't great because it's quite possible that maybe there's a file named, Blocky or something, and then it would have triggered off of that. So the wildcards adds a lot more granularity.
How can we test to make sure that these particular wildcards are doing exactly what we want them to do instead of something with unintended consequences? As
you could buy a used laptop and
no, come on now.
And Andy, what you'd want to do is set up a rule and have it set to notify only. Don't take any actions, and see how that rule is impacting. What kind of feedback are you getting from that rule? Is it, if it's triggering on things that you don't expect, you need to tighten the use of your wildcards in that rule.
Yeah.
Here's what I guess I'm kind of asking is there a way for us to sample against the last 24 hours to see what would come up if we were able to do that?
That's exactly how you do it.
Okay.
Yep. And to your other question, I think you were asking if by setting up a rule, are we going to go and scan SharePoint directly looking for anything?
I'm beginning to ask for known files, file types that this is kind of where my head was going with this one, Chip, is that there might be known names for ransomware files or their extensions. And as that knowledge base builds, that you'd be able to check it against any of the tenants that we are managing.
It's a good question. I think that's definitely something we
dynamic IP list, kind of dynamic word list.
Like a threat feed or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we can look to in the future. It's definitely not what we're building in here at this point.
Totally get you. But when you begin to give us this capability, that's kind of an extension. I think would make it even more powerful.
Agreed.
Jim is usually saying stuff through this, and I'm not hearing him. I guess it's just Chip's show now.
Jim might have
abandons
had to
us.
jump off.
Yeah, he had to go buy beads.
Yeah, bottom of the hour. Ben, do you have more to dig into here? Oh, there he is.
I'm here. I've been listening the whole time.
I think that was it for mostly for the wild cards. Was there any particular scenario you were thinking of?
Not on this. I'm just wondering if you're going to be getting into the
Yeah.
the uptick as part of, because we got 15 minutes left.
Yeah, that was
So
with
I
Leron.
think that's
Leron had some stuff he wanted to show, and we were going to tag
okay.
team
I want
that.
to make sure we cover it because it's pretty relevant.
Yeah.
And I know Zach picked it up just from his comments, so we want to
Yeah.
make sure everybody gets up to speed on what's going on here.
For sure.
All right, thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
All right, thank you. So typical disclaimer, very much work in progress. You know that we like to show you guys how we do things before we start. Our recipe for a long time has always been to solicit feedback from community and specific partners. So that's what this is, very much a work in progress. And before I begin, Andy, let me just say that we are going to have templates as part of this. So I'll get to that towards the end. So we are introducing IOCs, or indicators of compromise. You can think of this as a custom event builder. And there's going to be a new menu item here on the left-hand side called IOCs. We'll explain what it is. Tooltip explains what it is. And our long-term plan is to eventually move all of our aggregated events into IOCs. So you can go in and you can modify and adjust them however you see fit. So this is the initial view, the table view. It should look very familiar to respond. So when Ben and I worked together on this earlier, we created a new event called Unusual or Scripted Access. We're introducing the concept of a group by, since when you create an IOC, you can choose to group by an application or to combine the events across the different application. So you'll have that. Now you'll see that I've selected Microsoft here, and if I scroll down, I kind of have this nice combination of events and filter criteria that Ben identified for this presentation. So I'm going to hand things off to Ben to kind of explain what the threat or the IOC that we are looking for here is.
Certainly. So this is the one that Zach brought up not too long ago, and we still have continued to see this so much that we kind of dug into a little bit about what is actually happening here. So I put this cute little funny like graphic together for you guys. Basically, you have your end user that is sent a phishing email, and all of a sudden we're seeing traffic from Global Internet Solutions LLC, which if you do a little bit of research into that company, you'll see that it's Russian owned, but the IP addresses are coming out of Arizona. So if you're seeing, that sort of activity, it will usually follow with a sign in. After that, your token is stolen, and Chip and I were talking about, what exactly happens after that. And what we have seen is that token is stolen at that location and then taken off and either sold or given to another threat actor, because immediately after that, or not even immediately, sometime after that, we'll see that token being used to create mailbox forwarding rules, sending out massive amounts of email, things of that nature, but from a completely different location. Like I think we saw some from I think Data Camp used in New York and everything else, which could be possibly like a VPN. And as Zach was indicating, yesterday was a very busy day for us. And so I decided to kind of dig into the stats a little bit and find out, is this increased? And if you go down to the next slide, Mr. Leron, thank you. This is over the last 30 days. And this is a total of, I believe it was close to, back me up here, Chip. I think I said it was about 2,600 individual email accounts that were affected by
Yep,
this
that's right, Ben.
by this particular attack technique. And the uptick really, from what we've noticed, really hit hard at the very beginning of the year. You can see that that green blob has just grown pretty significantly. But yesterday we had a lot more events in in a smaller time frame. So not as many as like that were peaked in the early January, but much more closely knit together and happening pretty much one after the other. I know our MSA team individually stopped about 13 of these attacks. So it's definitely something that has increased. And Liron has written us a cool IOC that could be used for this. There is also a respond rule, just to let you know, that can be used. So if you have not put this in place, please do so. I think we've talked about it multiple times, but it's not slowing down. And it's easy to detect.
Thank you, Ben.
Hey, Liron,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
All right, so go back to that the initial wire or Figma view, if you could, of the IOC. So, like, is it possible that you could start sharing the IOCs amongst SAS Alerts users, and in theory, you're creating your own little ISAO? If you're familiar with that term, if not, I'm happy to share what that is. And then Jim, if you were able to do that, it'd be a huge, marketing sales win, if you will, for, why you'd want to get on board with SAS Alerts. So
that's precisely what we're doing here with this, is we are building an ecosystem for 2,500 partners and threat hunters, including Ben and his team. We have other internal folks that are doing things here. When we identify an IOC, the idea is to very quickly push it back into the community for all 2,500 of our partners to immediately start benefiting.
That's awesome.
And to answer your question on the sales and marketing side, Andrew, this is something Liron's been talking about for a long time, and ultimately, being community driven.
Right.
We think there are a lot of solutions in the marketplace that take a black box approach to what they uncover on behalf of the MSP, or what they do on behalf of the MSP, and they just say, you need to take our word for it because we're the smart guys and just trust us.
Yes.
We don't subscribe to that. We believe that from the very beginning, we're going to partner with our partners in a real way, so they know exactly the information that we're acting on and they can act on, and work together to surface it, as opposed to taking the, we know everything God complex approach to it.
Right. So Jim, last thing, and there's hands up, but could we maybe incorporate this into the SAS Alerts call once Liron's got this, baked, and like we could have the IOC, maybe that, and then, Amy can, start to market it to, whether it's Kaseya or external to Kaseya. Hey, if you want to join and learn more about, IOCs, and that's how, I helped build one community that will go unnoticed. It was, whether you're a prospect or customer, come, and we'll have a section on, the hottest M365 IOCs, et cetera, et cetera. I think it would, become a boom.
So IOC of the week, Andrew?
Yeah.
I know, I love that idea. So I have 6 minutes here, and I want to get through that and get to questions. So
got excited.
The top portion of this is basically respond. The bottom portion, we're introducing this new concept where initially we were thinking, do we just bake this into respond? Like, what do we do? So we have this selector, and you can select IOC. If you select IOC, it goes here. Respond, it goes here. So same thing as respond today. You can select critical, medium, low. Then this here is really what makes it powerful. Right? One of the biggest issues with respond today is our community has started using respond as basically IOCs, and partners have been asking us, it's missing a lot of critical information. So what we can do here, if I zoom in a little bit, when we create an event, we can actually use shortcodes in order to enumerate exactly what we want to be incorporated into the IOC. So here I have the shortcode for IOC name, and then I can add anything I want. Then I can say suspicious user agent, and this is the device agent here. And just so you know where I'm getting this, when we go to the event, if you just look for agent. So basically anything that comes on the event, you'll be able to throw in here as long as it exists. And so I'm also including location IP owner, account username, and the time that it occurred. And then down below that, we have a preview mode so you can see exactly what this is going to look like when you create it. Same thing as Respond Today. If you want this to go to SMS, mobile app, or email, that'll be there for you. And then we have the summary. So when this triggers on the analysis screen, you'll see unusual or scripted access attempts. This is the description that we gave it. You'll be able to search for this. And the other thing I missed is we also are going to add a URL, right? This URL is for your playbook. So imagine Ben has a tech on his MSA team that is getting this. This occurs at 3 in the morning. The tech will get the alert. There'll be a link to the playbook. They can click on it and go through the playbook. But in addition, they can view the IOC details. So this is, again, a very familiar screen. We've just removed some things here, and it's just a wireframe, so it's missing information. But these are the events that made up the wireframe. So when we analyze threats, what we want to do is, first question is, show me the events that made this thing up. These are the events that made this thing up. Then I want context into what has this person been doing for the last 7 days. So I take a look at that, and I get my context. The last piece is, well, 2 more pieces. Ben mentioned we can convert this IOC to a respond event. So in the chat, a lot of people were saying, hey, I run an alert, I run a respond rule for a month before I do anything with it. So with this, you let your IOC run for a month and it just gives you information. Now what I can do is I can reference this IOC here. If I select my target, instead of events or accounts, I select IOCs. I select this, and now I can do my respond action on top of it. So lastly, since you mentioned it, Andrew, we have this IOC templates. So if you have IOC templates that you want to submit to the community, you can select which ones you want to submit, acknowledge a couple of different things. We'll do a quick review, and you'll be able to come in here and duplicate unusual or scripted access attempts and just start using it right away.
That's awesome. Lewan, do you think you'll put some type of, like a tip, like as typically in, when it comes to threat sharing, you could put, different, traffic light protocols, red, green type of thing for, is it, shareable? Maybe it's really bad and they want to share it with you, Iran, but not necessarily for everybody because it's, just an idea to have some type of, traffic light protocol with it.
I'd love to hear more about that, Andrew.
Okay.
All right. We have 2 minutes. Questions? Start with R. Peters, since you're on top of my screen here.
Howdy. Thanks for taking the question. I don't know if this may be already included, but we're talking about functionality. In the blacklist rules or active scanning, it would make a lot of sense for ChatGPT or some sort of AI to take your domain and run it through like a big old spoofing analysis and figure out what names are not your name, but are similar names, and then take that AI and add all those domains to the blacklist, or maybe notify the user when one of the domains that is similar to yours but not yours. That could be a flagging protocol, or it could be an automated blacklist dump. And that way, on the way in, we know what your domain is, and the robots tell us what all the potential variations of not your domain is. And now we just take care of those spoofing opportunities on the way in.
That's a good idea. We have a lot of AI and machine learning in our roadmap for the second half of the year.
Cheers.
All right, Andy?
Yeah, I was thinking about this from a evaluation for a prospective customer to help them understand the power of this, not just in alerts, but in indicators of compromise and scoring this potentially with something similar to an EBSS score to help say, hey, these things aren't being dealt with or managed, and they are highly exploitable, and have this come up as a way to enhance our service offering, or present to their that they're in whatever they're doing right now just isn't cutting it. I see this as being a valuable tool in the sales side of things to help explain what's going on, especially with those links. If we had it, one for the technician and perhaps one for a report.
That's a good idea, Andy. Thank you. We're already over, so I'm going to hand things back over to Andrew.
Well, first, Leron, kudos to you and the dev team. That's real, like, huge. So congrats on some game-changing stuff. Really, really awesome. So that's how I'll end it. That's phenomenal, and especially that you guys are gonna be able to push and allow users to submit. Like I said, it's basically a, you know, I'm air quoting here, Chip, but it's like a threat intel platform, you know, for a lot of the MC365 stuff that you guys are dealing with. So congrats on the continued innovation of this.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah. So that's a wrap for the week. 201. Awesome seeing everybody, and you know, be safe, be safe, be warm, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Andrew, program note for you. I won't be here next week. Be out at a conference. I think probably Jim and Leron as well, but just
more importantly, speaking of conferences, I still haven't seen you register for Write a Boom, Chip. What's up?
I won't be at Write a Boom this year, buddy. I got some other conflicts.
All right. Well, that's going in the memory bank.
The rest of this team will more than make up for my lack of presence.
All right.
These guys are great.
They are. Yeah. All right, everybody. Take care.
See you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Tony.